Hello, my name is Nicole Imgrand, and I'm the owner and director of River's Edge Counseling Center. And I thank you all for joining us this evening for our webinar on getting better sleep with Lori Tiemer. Some of you, I think, have probably joined us before for our webinars. Some of you might be new. This is part of a series called Wellness Matters. And we have one more webinar coming up in our fall series in just a couple of weeks called Grief During the Holidays. But I'm really excited to announce here for the first time that our winter lineup is now posted on our website. And just to give you a taste of what's to come, we have a really full winter of webinar topics. We have one on emotions, another on self-criticism and self-compassion, building rituals of connection. We have a webinar coming up on how to support your child with learning differences, connection through yoga, stress and resilience, celebrating introverts, and also one on values, exploration, and meaning making. So something for everyone, and you are welcome to join us for any of them. This evening, we have, as I said, Lori Tiemer is our presenter, and Lori is a registered psychologist, and we are so fortunate that she has been on the River's Edge Counseling Center team for over 5 years now. Lori works with children, adolescents, and adults who are dealing with a variety of issues. Lori first started learning about and presenting on sleep while working at a rehabilitation center, where she realized the significant impact sleep can have on acute and chronic pain. Personally, Lori says that she has always been a big fan of sleep, but unfortunately, her 1-year-old is not. I think some of us can definitely identify with that. She is grateful that she can at least support others in getting better sleep. Lori's presentation will probably not take the full hour. And so if we have time at the end of the hour, we will have a bit of time for questions and answers if you're interested in sticking around. I'm going to be watching the chat in case there's any technical issues. If you have any questions as we go, please post them in the chat or on the Q&A function, and we will definitely circle back to them at the end, any comments that you have along the way. We will be posting the recording of this session as well as Lori's presentation on our website in the next few days. So you're welcome to listen. You don't feel like you have to take all of the notes. And from there, I'm going to hand it over to Lori.
All right, thank you, Nicole. I'm just going to start by sharing my presentation. So just give me 1 second. I'm going to get it up here and then we'll get started. All right, so today we are talking about sleep. And yeah, this is a topic I always enjoy talking about because I think it's something that we don't talk about enough, even though it is vital to our survival. I often hear a lot of people say that they don't really believe that there's anything they can do to impact their sleep. Whatever is going on with their sleep is just kind of what they have to deal with. And hopefully by the end of our session tonight, you realize that there is a lot that you can do to impact your sleep if you're not getting great sleep right now. Insomnia, not getting good sleep, is a huge problem. According to the Public Health Agency of Canada, 1 in 4 adults between the ages of 18 and 34 are not getting enough sleep. And 1 in 3 adults between the ages of 35 and 64 are not getting enough sleep. So it's a pretty significant issue that a lot of people are dealing with. So hopefully by the end of this webinar today, you'll have some ideas on how you can start getting some better sleep. Okay, so some of the stuff we're going to talk about today, we're going to spend quite a bit of time on just talking about sleep. I think that's a really important thing to understand. What happens, why when we sleep, why it's important, just some basic physiology of sleep, what insomnia is all about, um, before we kind of talk about some of the strategies that can help impact our sleep. I think it's really important to have an understanding of where these strategies are coming from and what they are impacting. So that's what we'll be talking about today. Okay, so let's start with why we need sleep. And I always think one of the best ways to think about why we need sleep or consider the importance of sleep is to look at the impact of sleep deprivation. Now, um, a lot of these things don't necessarily happen if you've had 1 or 2 nights of bad sleep. We all have that. But if we're looking at over time, if we're looking at chronic sleep problems, chronic insomnia, there's a lot of different areas that it can impact. So things like slower reaction times. Research has shown that accidents, car accidents, workplace accidents are a lot more common when people are sleep deprived. We can experience impaired speech, reduced memory, ability to concentrate, difficulty making decisions, increased irritability, anxiety, depression. Those of you who do experience sleep difficulties, you know that it impacts your mood. It can also impact our immune system functioning. It can reduce our immune system functioning. And that's again with some of that more chronic insomnia. It can also speed up the aging process. Sleep impacts everything, right? So it's really important to get good sleep if you're not getting it, because there's some pretty significant impact that it can have. Research has shown that most adults typically need about 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Now, obviously, there's some variation in that. If you're not getting 7 to 9 hours, it's not time to panic. But that's typically the range that most people need. Okay. Just on the chat that we need to increase the volume. I'll try and talk a little bit louder. Let me know if it's still not loud enough. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the physiology of sleep. Sleep's a really complex process, but I'm going to talk about kind of the two main biological processes that affect sleep. So we have our sleep drive. So that's what determines when we get sleepy. So as we're awake, our sleep drive goes up. As we sleep, our sleep drive goes down. So when the sleep drive is high, that is when we are going to feel sleepy. Our body's going to give us, okay, I'll try to speak up a little bit louder. I'm seeing that people are still having trouble hearing. So yeah, when our sleep drive is really high, that's when we're going to get those sleepy cues, right? We might be yawning. We're going to start feeling sleepy. Our eyes might get a bit droopy. So this is one of the biological processes that help us to feel sleepy. Then we have our circadian rhythm. So that's like our internal body clock. And that impacts a lot of different systems in our body. So our endocrine system, nervous system, body temperature, all that kind of stuff. And our circadian rhythm can fluctuate throughout the day. That's why you might feel a little bit lower energy mid-afternoon. You might feel more energy in the morning. Our internal body clock is really based on our exposure to light. So if we're not getting any exposure to light, our internal body clock gets really confused. It doesn't know when to be awake. It doesn't know when to be asleep. We can do things, and we're going to talk about these things today. We can do things to influence our internal body clock. Because what we want is that we want our sleep drive and our circadian rhythm to sync up. When it's out of sync, that's when we start to experience a lot of difficulties with sleep. So if you've ever experienced jet lag, If you do shift work, you know the impact, right? You know the impact of your sleep drive and your circadian rhythm being out of sync. You might um, you might feel really tired, but you can't sleep. Your sleep drive might be really high, but your circadian rhythm is off. So these are the pieces that we're going to look at. We can impact this with some of the strategies we're talking about. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about what happens when we sleep, because there's a lot that goes on when we're sleeping. There are 5 different stages of sleep that we cycle through throughout the night. We have non-REM sleep, which is non-rapid eye movement sleep, and then we have REM sleep. So I'm going to start with the stages that are in that non-REM sleep. So we have stage 1, that's where we're just starting to fall asleep. It's very light sleep. We can still be very easily awakened. Our body is just beginning to relax. Then we move into stage 2. Moderately light sleep, we can still be somewhat easily awakened. It's a little bit harder. Here's where some changes in our body start to happen. Our heart rate starts to slow, our body temperature starts to drop. We're starting to get prepared for moving into those deeper stages of sleep. Then we have stages 3 and 4, and those stages are both the deep restorative sleep. This is really important stuff. This is where a lot of physical rejuvenation happens. Then we have REM sleep. This is rapid eye movement sleep, because if you were to watch somebody in this stage of sleep, their eyes are moving back and forth behind their closed eyelids. This is where the brain is really, really active. A lot of vivid dreaming happens in this stage. And this is the stage that a lot of mental rejuvenation happens. So things like learning and memory processing happen in this stage. So every stage plays a really important role. And you'll see in this graph here, I've got an example of kind of typical sleep cycles. So you'll see that we cycle through these different stages multiple times throughout the night. What happens, and I hope you can see my mouse here because I'm going to show you some of these different stages. In this example, they've clumped together the stage 3 and 4, that deep restorative sleep. So you'll see that what happens is that more in the beginning stages of your sleep, earlier on in the night, you're getting more of that deeper sleep. You're spending more time in stages 3 and 4 earlier on in the night. And then what happens is that your REM sleep, if you can see here, this darker red line starts to lengthen later on in your sleep cycle. So earlier on in the morning, you end up spending more time in REM. You spend a majority of your time in stage 2, okay? So it's important to consider these stages because we need to look at sleep quality and sleep quantity, right? You may sleep for 8 hours, but you may not have good sleep quality. You're still waking up not feeling refreshed. That's when maybe we need to look at strategies that can impact your sleep cycle and the sleep stages. So, for example, if you experience lots of frequent awakenings at the beginning of your sleep, you may not be getting enough of that deep restorative sleep. There's lots of different things that can impact how we cycle through sleep stages. If you're experiencing a lot of sleep deprivation, that can actually cause abnormal sleep cycles. Alcohol can also impact our sleep phases. What it does is it ends up decreasing REM sleep at the beginning of our sleep cycle, increasing it more. So again, we could still maybe sleep for 8 hours if we've had some drinks, but we might not wake up feeling very refreshed because those sleep cycles were disrupted. Okay. So let's talk about some different sleep difficulties that you might be experiencing. Insomnia can be acute, it can be intermittent, it can be chronic. We've all experienced it at some point. And you may experience all of these difficulties. So some of us have issues with sleep onset, with actually falling asleep. Then there's the nocturnal wakings, right? That might be waking up at the same time every night. It might be frequent awakenings throughout the night. Um, we could also have issues with waking earlier than desired and then not being able to get back to sleep. And then difficulties falling back asleep with those wakenings. So, the strategies that I'm going to talk about today can address each of these difficulties. And I'm going to talk about each strategy, how each strategy can kind of help with each of these so that you can kind of personalize your treatment plan. If you're experiencing, just one of these issues, you'll kind of know what strategies can be more helpful. I want to note that if your sleep difficulties are due to a medical condition or you believe they might be due to a medical condition, so that could be something like sleep apnea or restless leg syndrome. It's really important to talk with your doctor about that, because using these strategies is likely not going to resolve your sleep difficulties if it's due to a medical issue. You need to have that treated before you attempt any of these strategies. Okay. Okay, last thing I'm going to talk about before we jump into strategies is just a model of insomnia. So just talking about different factors that contribute to experiencing chronic insomnia. So we have predisposing factors. So these are kind of the factors that are out of our control, things like age, genetics. Some people were born night owls, early birds. Some of those things are out of our control. So these are the things that are present before sleep difficulties develop. Then we have precipitating factors. So these are circumstances that can trigger our insomnia. So this could be things like stress, trauma, medical conditions. When did the insomnia first start? And a lot of times with these precipitating factors, you do maybe require medical treatment or psychological treatment. Then we have the perpetuating factors, and these are the things that typically create chronic insomnia. So these are the thoughts and behaviors that we have around sleep. And these are the things that we're going to focus on. These are the factors that we're really going to focus on with these strategies that I'll be talking about today. So how we can begin to change our thoughts and behaviors about or around sleep. Okay, so I am going to jump into talking about strategies now. I actually don't know if I'm going to be able to get through all of these, but I'm hoping we can get through most of them with the time that we have. We're going to talk about some behavioral strategies, and we're going to talk about cognitive strategies. So with the behavioral strategies, we're going to talk about stimulus control, sleep restriction, sleep hygiene, and then with the cognitive strategies, we're going to talk about cognitive restructuring, worry time, and mindfulness. Now, I know sometimes it can feel a bit overwhelming to see all of these strategies. You don't have to do them all. Like I said, I'm going to talk about when it might be most helpful to utilize each strategy so that hopefully you can pick out maybe one or two that might be helpful for the issues that you're dealing with sleep. Okay. First things first, I always recommend that people start by keeping a sleep log. This can really help to guide the pace of your sleep interventions and your strategy choices. It can help to monitor the effectiveness of the strategies, because I would recommend you keep the sleep log even when you start implementing strategies. And it can enhance your motivation if you're starting to see that the strategies you use are helping. So I'm going to show an example of a sleep log. I'm just going to stop my screen share and pull up my sleep log. Now you can, you can just put sleep log into Google and you'll get a ton of different options. You don't have to use the one that I'm going to show you. But just to give you an example of what this is going to look like. Okay, so this sleep log is from anxietycanada.com. So you'll see with this sleep log, you're going to complete it in the morning. Okay, so once you've woken up in the morning, you're going to kind of look back on that day and think about some different things. So this one asks about, did you have a comfortable sleep environment? Did you do a relaxation exercise before bed? Asks about food. Did you have a snack, exercise? And we're going to talk about how all these strategies can impact sleep in just a second. Did you follow a bedtime routine? Did you wake up at a set time? Did you go to bed when you were sleepy? I won't go through all of them. You guys can see that. But it's just tracking all the things that can impact your sleep. I typically recommend that people do this for about 2 weeks before you even choose a strategy, because sometimes just by doing a sleep log, people can easily pick out what the issue is. They're going, yeah, I drink caffeine too late, or I always exercise too close to bedtime. Sometimes it can give you some really important information. Okay, so like I said, this one is from anxietycanada.com, but you can find sleep logs anywhere. You can use any type. They're all pretty similar, focusing on similar things. Okay, so that's step number one. I'm going to just pop back into my presentation here. So we're going to start by talking about a strategy called sleep hygiene. Let me just get us back in here. Okay. Just going to make this bigger for us. All right, so sleep hygiene. These are various strategies. So they can be beneficial for everyone. Okay, so I do recommend that everybody start to incorporate even just 1 or 2 sleep hygiene strategies. Because like I say, it can be helpful for everyone, no matter if you're experiencing sleep difficulties or not. If you are experiencing chronic insomnia, you're likely going to need more than just these strategies, though. So I just want to mention that you're going to have to incorporate other strategies if it's been chronic for you. So some examples of sleep hygiene: exposing yourself to light when you wake up. Going back to what I said about your circadian rhythm, it is based on exposure to light. So if you can expose yourself to light, if you can't expose yourself to natural daylight, at least having lots of lights on inside, it's really important to cue your circadian rhythm that you need to be awake. Limit napping. This can sometimes be the hard one if you are not sleeping well at night, but napping can interfere with our sleep drive, right? We end up lowering that sleep drive if we nap, and it can start to confuse our body clock, our circadian rhythm. Our body starts going, okay, I'm sleeping when it's light out. This is really confusing. If you do need to nap, always try to keep it 30 minutes or less, because that's going to prevent you from getting into those deeper stages of sleep. Sometimes if you've napped for a long time, you might end up feeling worse than when you went to sleep. And that's because you're coming up from those deeper stages of sleep. Limiting alcohol. Like I said before, alcohol, even though it might help you fall asleep, it can impact those sleep phases that you get into. And you may likely end up waking up feeling not so good. And that's not just because of the alcohol, but because you haven't cycled through those sleep stages the way you need to. Stimulants, so caffeine, nicotine is a stimulant, some medications are stimulants. We know that those can impact our sleep onset. So oftentimes if we have stimulants in our body, it becomes really hard to fall asleep. So if you take a medication that is a stimulant, it's important to think about the timing of that. Are you taking it in the morning? Are you taking it right before bed? Are you smoking right before bed? Nicotine is in your body for a long period of time, so that can impact your ability to fall asleep. And again, it impacts the quality of your sleep and those sleep stages as well. It's important to try and maintain as consistent of a sleep schedule as possible. And the best way to do that is to set a consistent wake time. That helps to regulate your circadian rhythm. So no matter what time you end up going to sleep, having a consistent wake time can be extremely helpful. Again, I know that can be hard if you're not getting a lot of sleep, or if you try to catch up on your sleep on the weekends, but that's just kind of creating more of an issue, right? Exercise. Exercising right before bed can be not so good. What it ends up doing, as we know, it raises our body temperature, and that can end up interfering with our sleep. So typically it's recommended that you exercise, especially if you're doing really heavy exercise, 4 to 5 hours before you go to sleep. Some light stretching is okay before bed, but if we're really raising that body temperature, it's likely going to impact our sleep. So 4 to 5 hours before is ideal. Oops. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself here. Not sure how to get back out of that. Nicole, I'm not sure how to get back out of that Q&A. I clicked on it and now I'm not getting back out. I don't know if you have any idea how to do that.
So go to slide. Is that what you, and then
just the right here. I'm not sure if you can see this, how I clicked on the Q&A. It's not minimizing.
I think you're seeing something that I can't see.
You're not? Okay, I'm going to stop my screen share.
Presentation. Sorry.
I'm going to stop my screen share for a second. Sorry about this. And I'm just going to try and get out of this. I just accidentally opened up the Q&A and then but I've got it now. Sorry about that.
Okay. And I see the question. We'll definitely get to it at the end there.
Okay, here we go. We're back. Okay. So yes, exercise. Try and keep it earlier in the day if that's possible. If you're doing exercise right before bed, try not to do too much intensity. Try not to raise that body temperature too much. Okay, having a sleep routine, doing similar things every night before you're planning on going to bed can help to cue your body that it's time for sleep. So maybe that's taking a shower, reading for a bit, having a cup of tea. Try and come up with a routine. If you can do it an hour before bed, that's great. If you only have half an hour, that's okay too, but try and keep it pretty consistent. And your body and your brain will start going, okay, I'm doing these things. It's time to start winding down and getting ready for sleep. And then the last one I'll talk about is just dimming the lighting before bed. So again, this is connected with our circadian rhythm. If we have a bunch of lights on, if we're on our phones, being exposed to that light, our bodies don't get the cue that it's time to go to sleep. So we need that dimming of the lights. We need a darker environment to cue our internal body clocks to start to wind down. right? To start to release more melatonin and to help start to calm us and prepare us for sleep. Um, Again, if you can do this up to an hour before bedtime, that is ideal. Um, but if you don't have that kind of time where you can be in a dim environment, just try and do it as much as you can before bed. And the big thing is trying not to be on electronics. I know that's hard for us in this day and age, but again, it's the light that can really impact our circadian rhythm. I know that's a lot. Like I said, you don't have to do all of these things. You can pick one or two things to start with if you're not already doing them, and try them out for a while. Track them in your sleep log. See if anything can help at this point. It's going to take a little bit of time with some of this stuff, but see if there's anything that you're doing now that maybe you can shift a little bit with sleep hygiene. Okay, the cycle of insomnia. Anyone who spends a lot of time laying in bed trying to sleep is going to know exactly what I'm going to talk about, what I'm talking about. You're going to be familiar with this. What ends up happening is that if we lie awake in bed night after night, and we typically are going to feel frustrated, anxious when we're doing that, it begins to pair our bed and our bedroom with wakefulness, frustration, anxiety. So over time, our bed and our bedroom then is connected with feeling wakeful, frustrated, and anxious. This is classical conditioning for any of you who are familiar with that term. So this takes some time to develop for this pairing to happen, but it happens, right? We walk into our bedroom or we start laying in bed and we don't end up feeling relaxed. We feel this immediate frustration or anxiety and wakefulness. So something that can be really helpful with that is something called stimulus control. So if you're using your bed or your bedroom to do various activities, you read in there, you watch TV, you pay bills, you do work, stimulus control is something that you might want to look at. And then if you're having long periods of wakefulness throughout the night, so maybe you're awake for an hour, 2 hours in the middle of the night, and just laying in bed trying to sleep, this is a strategy that can be really helpful. So how do you do this? You go to bed only once you start feeling sleepy. So you may have a typical bedtime, let's say it's 10 p.m. If you're feeling sleepy at that time, great. If you're feeling sleepy before, great, go to bed. If you're not feeling sleepy at that time, don't go to bed yet because you can't force yourself to sleep, right? You're just going to end up laying there, awake, feeling frustrated and anxious. So that's the first thing. Don't go to bed until you actually feel sleepy. The next piece of this is only using your bed for sleep. So taking all other activities outside of the bed and bedroom. So that does mean not watching TV in bed, not reading in bed even, at least initially if you're doing this. Once your sleep starts getting back on track, you might start to incorporate some of this stuff back in. Not working in your bed. You have to find other places to do this stuff, right? Take it outside, take it to the living room, the kitchen, anywhere but the bedroom. If you are waking up in the middle of the night and you're not falling back asleep within about 20 minutes, leave the bedroom. Okay. So again, with this stimulus control, what we're trying to do is reverse that pairing of bed, bedroom with wakefulness, frustration, anxiety. Okay. So can't fall asleep after about 20 minutes, you get up and you leave the bedroom. And again, I know this is not easy stuff. You might be cozy in bed, you might not, right? You might not feel like you have the energy to get up, but this is really important to break that pairing. And you might have to leave your bedroom multiple times at night if you're having those multiple awakenings. Now, the important thing is what you do when you leave your bedroom. So you don't want to leave your bedroom and then do something really stimulating. So you want to leave your bedroom and do something boring, do something really relaxing, right? So that might be reading a boring book, listening to a boring podcast. You don't want to start engaging in things that you're not going to want to stop doing, because what we want to do is that as soon as you start feeling sleepy again, you go back to bed. Okay. So we're kind of going back to the first step here. Go to bed once you feel sleepy. Okay. Try not to eat, because then your body starts going, okay, if I wake up at 3 a.m., I get food, right? So we don't want to make another pairing for your body. So do something boring. Maybe if you're into like meditation, you meditate during that time. Maybe you fold laundry, right? That's a pretty boring task, I would say, for most people. Okay. With stimulus control, just like I said in sleep hygiene, we want to set up a consistent wake time as well, because we're working with regulating that internal body clock. Okay, so we want to set a consistent wake time, and that's no matter what time you go to bed. That's no matter how many wakenings you've had. Okay, it might be tough at first. You're gonna be sleepy, but I'm gonna guess that you're sleepy already. So over time, we'll have a consistent wake time, but you'll actually be getting some good quality and quantity of sleep. And with stimulus control, at least while you're really focusing in on this strategy, and until you can kind of see an improvement in your sleep, no napping. Okay. So again, that impacts our sleep drive and our circadian rhythm, the napping. So it's really important, at least while you're doing these strategies, to try to refrain from napping. So just as it takes those repeated experiences for your brain to pair your bed in your bedroom with wakefulness, frustration, anxiety, it's going to take time for your brain to start pairing your bed with sleep. So obviously, this is not an immediate fix. It takes a little bit of time. Okay, so you have to be consistent with this stimulus control, but it can be really, really effective. Just keeping an eye on the time. I think I'm gonna skip over sleep restriction right now, and then if I have time at the end, I'll touch on it. Because sleep restriction is a little bit more of a complicated strategy. It's something that if you're having really restless sleep, not that you're having long periods of wakefulness, it can be helpful, but it's one of those strategies that's a little bit more complicated. I typically recommend that people do it with like a trained therapist. So I'm going to just skip over that right now, because I really want to make sure we talk about some cognitive strategies, because these are things that are a little bit easier to implement. And then if we have time, I'll come back to sleep restriction. Okay. So I'm going to pop over that. Okay. I know I'm giving a lot of information, so take a breath. I hope you're all still with me. I'm going to talk about a couple of cognitive strategies that can be helpful for improving your sleep. Cognitive restructuring. This is something that can help if you find that you're telling yourself a lot of shoulds about sleep. So I find that some of the common ones are like, I should be able to easily fall asleep. I should get 8 hours of sleep. Even other thoughts like, if I don't get enough sleep tonight, tomorrow's going to be horrible, or kind of catastrophizing the impact of 1 or 2 nights of bad sleep. Also, it can be really helpful if you find that stress, anxiety, depression, mental health concerns are impacting your sleep. So how do we do this? I'm going to take you through an example, but there's 3 steps. We want to be able to identify the thoughts we're having. If we don't know what we're thinking, we can't do anything about it. We want to look at our thoughts. We want to challenge them. We want to go, is this a true thought? Is this a realistic thought? Does this even make sense? And then we want to look at kind of reframing our thoughts, or finding some more realistic thoughts that will likely help to impact our behaviors. When you think about, I must sleep tonight. I should be able to fall asleep within 5 minutes. Tomorrow's going to be horrible if I don't sleep. I'm going to take a guess that you don't end up feeling very relaxed, right? Even just hearing me say those um, phrases probably isn't very relaxing. And what ends up happening is that our thoughts can actually trigger the stress response in our body, which obviously is not conducive to sleep. So our thoughts impact how we feel, they impact what we do. Okay. So I'm going to take us through an example of this. I'm going to pull up something called a thought record, and I'm going to take us through it as an example. Now, again, this is not easy stuff to do. This takes effort and practice to really even be able to identify our thoughts. So, don't put too much pressure on yourself at the beginning. This is something to just try out, try to stay consistent with, and then it gets easier. So let's start with the situation. Let's say that you are unable to fall asleep. So maybe it's been 30 minutes. You're laying in bed, not even close to being asleep. So that's the situation. The thoughts you're having about it. Let's say that you start thinking, I am never going to get to sleep tonight. And tomorrow's going to be awful. Okay. So those are the thoughts you're having as you're laying in bed, not being able to sleep. Now, I know for me, and I'm going to assume for a lot of you, you're probably not going to be feeling very good. You might be feeling stressed, frustrated, anxious at that point in time. So what do? You're feeling stressed, you're feeling frustrated, you're feeling anxious. Maybe you continue laying in bed and having those thoughts, feeling like you have no control over what's going on right now. So you just keep laying there, feeling more and more frustrated. Or maybe because you're already feeling stressed, you get up and you start doing something stressful. You start paying bills, or you start frantically cleaning the house. Maybe those are some of the behaviors that come with that thought process. So this is the important piece, this alternate, I'm just going to move this, the alternate thought. Let's go back to those thoughts. I'll never get to sleep tonight. Well, in reality, it's likely that you'll eventually fall asleep, right? Eventually our sleep drive gets so high that we fall asleep. So even just telling yourself that might start to change how you feel and what you do. Maybe then you decide, okay, maybe I'll just give myself some time, or maybe I'll do something more relaxing. Another alternate thought might be that I may feel a little bit sleepy tomorrow, but it's likely that I'll manage, right? Reducing that catastrophizing of not getting a good night's sleep. That's going to impact how you feel. Coming up with a plan. Well, maybe if I get some fresh air and sunlight in the morning, that'll be helpful. I won't feel as sleepy. Or maybe tomorrow I make sure and stop and get a coffee on my way to work. That will be helpful. So do you see, just by how shifting our thoughts a bit, it can change how we feel and it can change what we end up doing. This strategy, cognitive restructuring, is not about thinking positive. It's not saying, I'm going to have a great night's sleep. It's not about being unrealistic. It's just about really investigating our thoughts and checking in with them to see if they're maybe a little bit distorted. Are they a little bit unrealistic? Or maybe they're unhelpful, right? Maybe there's something else we can think or start doing to impact our situation. So this is something that can be really helpful. Again, this sometimes isn't a quick fix. It's something we have to get used to. If you're not used to kind of looking at your thoughts and beginning to challenge them, but this can be a great strategy to use to help you to sleep better. Okay. Let me go back to my presentation. I think I'm going to talk about one more strategy right now. Just keeping an eye on time. And that is something called worry time. I know that's kind of a strange concept for most people when they hear worry time. So I'm just going to pop back into my presentation. Okay. All right. Worry time. So what this is all about, sorry, I'll start with when it might help. So if you are a person that spends a lot of time during the day worrying, and if you find yourself worrying when you want to be sleeping, this is something that can be really helpful. So, I mean, we all can relate, I'm sure, to not being able to sleep because of worrying about something sometimes. But if you find that this is more of a chronic issue for you, it's happening all the time, this is something that can be really helpful to start incorporating. So, what worry time is that you're actually going to start scheduling time to worry, or you allow yourself to worry. So you can pick maybe one time a day, maybe 2 times a day. I probably wouldn't do more than two, where you actually will allow yourself to worry. So what you're going to do is you're going to set a timer, and I would say no more than 30 minutes, where you totally allow yourself to worry. All the worries that you have, think about them in that time. Maybe you write them down. This isn't a time for problem solving. This is just a time to allow all of those worries to come. Okay. So, like I said, it's important to set a timer, right? Because this can get big if we don't have a time limit on it. So we want to make sure we're setting a timer. We also want to make sure that you have something to do after. So, maybe it's okay, my kids are coming home at this time. I'm going to have my worry time right before it, so that you know that there's something that you can do and you'll be able to distract yourself. Okay. You are still going to worry throughout the day, but what you do with the worry time is that you delay those worries until your worry time. So if you notice yourself starting to worry at a time, or sorry, that at another time throughout the day, you can then tell yourself, okay, I notice that I'm worrying right now, but I'm going to think about it at this time, right? At my scheduled worry time. So it can help to delay those worries. Now, the important thing to remember is that worrying is thinking about the future. If you find that you are focusing on the past and ruminating on things that have happened in the past, you can actually end up feeling worse. So it's important that with worry time, you are actually worrying, right? You are thinking about things that are going to happen in the future. So again, this can be something that's really helpful if that racing mind, if all of those worries come to you at nighttime. Again, it can take some time to get used to this. It might not be that quick fix, but it can be really, really helpful cognitive strategy to help just kind of calm our minds a bit, to help us sleep better. Okay. I have talked about a lot already. So I'm thinking that it might be a good time to just pause um, and see if there's any questions, because I know, I haven't gotten to all of the strategies, but I've already talked about a lot, and I know that it's a lot of information and can sometimes feel overwhelming. So maybe I will stop there and allow for some questions if there are any, and go from there.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Lori. So we do have a couple of questions, and if you have others, please post them for us. So one is, any suggestions if you wake up from a hot flash, how to not wake yourself up too much?
Okay, yes. I mean, with the strategies we've talked about, it really goes back to, like, if you're waking up um, for whatever reason, um, implement those same strategies. If you're not able to fall back asleep, so thinking about that stimulus control, if you're not able to fall back asleep within 20 minutes, you're going to want to leave the room, do
Mm.
something relaxing, go back. I mean, dealing with hot flashes, that might be something that you want to consult with your doctor about, right? That is a medical thing. So, in order to prevent them or better manage them, that might be more of a medical um, issue. But with regards to the waking up, maybe you're not able to fall asleep. Stimulus control can still be helpful because, like I say, regardless of what's waking you up, if you're laying in bed and you're not able to fall back asleep, that can be really frustrating, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I hope that answers
Thank,
your
thank
question,
you.
is helpful.
Yeah. And another one here. What do you do if you know you're going to have a late night? What's the best way to get back on your regular sleep schedule? Should you sleep in? And if so, how much so that you know that you're tired at the right time again that night?
hmm So if this is kind of a one-time thing, you're going to have a late night. My recommendation would be to still keep that consistent wake time. So as I was saying, that is what helps to regulate our circadian rhythm. So no matter what time you end up going to bed, I would recommend trying to keep a consistent wake time. I mean, if it's within the hour, like if it's a really late night, that's okay. But that's really the best thing you can do to kind of stay regulated. Yeah,
Sounds good.
yeah,
Yeah. So no other questions in the Q&A or the chat. We'll just
okay.
leave it for a moment here in case
Yeah,
anyone.
and I'll talk about a resource. Yeah, I'm seeing we're coming up to 8, so I'm not going to talk about any of their strategies, but I'm going to share a resource with everyone. So let me just pull up my screen again, and I'll talk a little bit about that. And on Nicole was saying that the PowerPoint will be posted on our website. So the two strategies that I didn't get a chance to talk about today, mindfulness and sleep restriction, are on my PowerPoint. You can look at them. But with the sleep restriction, you might need a little bit more support. Like I said, you can always uh, look into that further, or if you're already connected with a therapist, they might be familiar with it. Mindfulness is another one that can be really helpful that you'll see on that PowerPoint. So I've just included one resource because I don't want to overwhelm you with a ton of different ones. And this is a really good one because it's got tons of information on it. So this was actually created by some people at Dalhousie, not sure I'm saying that right, University in Nova Scotia. So it has got things like information on insomnia, so checklists on insomnia. There's resources related to all of the strategies that I've talked about. So again, with the sleep restriction, the mindfulness, there are further resources on there that you can look into if you want more information on those strategies. It's got book recommendations. It's got links to different guided relaxation techniques. It's kind of got everything that you need and then resources from there all in one spot. So that's kind of my recommendation where to start. I think it's got some great stuff in it. It's got sleep logs, all that kind of stuff. So
Sounds like a great resource. We'll make sure to put a link
yeah.
with the video as well. Yeah, wonderful.
Okay.
Well, this is one topic that really touches on everyone. So integral and such different, I know for me, different times in my life, it's been issues in different ways. Sometimes for the reason we started talking about, Lori, because of other people in our life who don't want to sleep.
That's right. And unfortunately, some of these strategies can't help if you have kids. Sometimes we just have to deal with that.
And it doesn't seem fair that when that's not a problem in your life, then maybe it's something else, stress, or like someone mentioned, hormones. But
Oh, yes.
it's great to have a toolbox of resources that can help through different stages of life and struggles with sleep. So thank you very much. Wonderful presentation. Thank you to everyone for joining us. I just really appreciate having you here, and I hope that you will feel welcome to join us for any of our future talks as well. And with that, we will say goodbye and hope to see you soon. Take care.
Thank you.